Alright, so starting things off, again, this is a best of 3 series between Absolute Legends and Virtus.Pro. Very excited about it here, and Mania is going to start things off by drafting up the Undying and really just kind of set the pace for things. But one thing to keep in mind is that they do have first pick, and we'll have to see kind of where their strategy comes into play, because Absolute Legends is a relatively new roster. They don't really have all their style 100% figured out yet, but that means they're also quite a wild card, and I'm curious to see what they're going to come out with here. But enough about that. I'd like to welcome very warmly Rainmaker. How's it going?
Oh, today has been a great day, and I'm really excited to cast. One thing about Absolute Legend, you're right, they're a new roster, but these are really old faces. Mania, Miggle, Miracle, and even Rise have been around forever. And you know what? I think one thing you can see when Absolute Legends plays, while they don't know what kind of style they go for in their drafts, it's not really solidified yet, but their team play and their coordination in fights is immaculate. They're one of my dark horses to go really far in the league, and I'm super excited. Looking at the bans, it's been a while since we've seen an Undying get banned out in the first 4. He's definitely, a very common pickup, but this leaves a lot of really strong heroes left in the pool. There's a Keeper of the Light, there's the Wisp is still open, and yes, that Wisp is very available, and I'd be fairly surprised if we don't see it picked up by Absolute Legends.
Yeah.
There it is.
Mania has to pick it up, otherwise we're 100% positive NS would just snap that thing up. He
Yeah.
loves playing the Wisp. He loves playing so aggressively with that, and if they give it to him, it's a really, really painful thing to have to deal with, because he's very aggressive with it, and when he hits that 6, it's a lot of trouble to cause. I'm curious if AL wants to run it on the mid lane as a pulling support, where he can just knock down the trees with Tether and kind of make sure the mid is secured, or if he's going to use it in a tri-lane support and just do the same thing with the neutrals down on bottom. Either way, Wisp really wants to get some levels, and if he can get that relocate pretty early on, any vulnerable hero from Virtus.Pro is going to have a very rough time of things.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Wisp, the other great thing about it is once you go and push down those outer tier towers, it's almost impossible for the enemy to carry to farm very safely, because you're always in danger of that gank. And Virtus.Pro, just meeting them, they say, hey, Absolute Legends, you want to gank? Okay, but you're never going to be able to take a team fight, because between Darkseer and Magnus, that is team fight domination. Vacuum wall is already bad enough, but when you follow that up with a reverse polarity, it is absolutely backbreaking. Absolute Legends is going to have to go and find some other way to take their advantage, because I do not think they want to go into those 5v5 engagements versus Virtus.Pro.
Absolutely, but interesting pickups coming out of AL, picking up the new hero on the block. The Silencer been put into Captain's mode, and that's actually Tournament Captain's mode. So yeah, he's going to be their hero of choice here. He has a lot of utility, which is pretty much the best option for counter initiation. If you can pop off a well-timed Global Silence, you can get the best vacuum in the world. Even maybe the reverse polarity could come out, but as long as there's not enough follow-up from the gyrocopter with call down flat cannon and those kinds of things, they can make sure that the initiation won't be where it needs to be from Virtus.Pro. But of course that does mean that the Silencer has to be well positioned, and a position where he's not going to be disabled himself and just subsequent to all that damage in AoE. But from there, picking up the Chaos Knight, great buddy with the Wisp, just kind of can maneuver around very aggressively, has a high base movement speed already, and with the Wisp tether will increase that very substantially, so he can gank very aggressively. And although there is a bit of randomness to him, once that relocate comes up, there are going to be some sure kills if Gyrocopter, for example, is farming by himself.
Yeah, and I think that Absolute Legends is one of those teams that actually farms the Silencer. I believe that Miracle has been rising on him quite effectively, and I wasn't able to catch the games, but they have been winning with that hero, with that strategy. So I wouldn't be surprised that we see the Chaos Knight kind of in that 2 or 3 position where he gets farm, gets those early game items like the drums, the treads, and then goes on a absolute tear with the Wisp, going and trying to keep the enemy carry down, while you have a Silencer whose pure damage is very strong. It doesn't have that AoE ability, isn't able to clear creeps particularly effectively in the mid game. You can't really pick up a Battle Fury to assist him in that sense either. But if he does get that farm, he's a huge threat to heroes like Gyrocopter, who, due to the fact they're agility heroes, kind of get away with having a very high armor pool.
Absolutely. Along with that, Absolute Legends banning out some powerful lane supports here. The Shadow Demon and Leshrac don't want to be able to coincide that with the Gyrocopter. They assume that with this current laning situation, Darkseer is going to go on that offlane with Magnus on the mid, and then Gyrocopter is going to be their safe lane #1 carry. With those picks locked down, they definitely don't want them to round out lineups with powerful lane supports. So with Virtus.Pro actually banning out their own Rubik, and with the Shadow Demon and Leshrac taken out, their options are kind of dwindling into maybe 4 or 5 different really powerful options in the first and second tier of lane supports that can coincide with that Gyro. I could still see a twin-headed dragon being rather powerful with that Darkseer, and I think that might be what Absolute Legends wants to look to ban out next, but they obviously have plenty of different heroes they have to choose from and make sure that they're not being outplayed and outdrafted right here, as there is a lot of that kind of wombo combo type ultimate styles going on through. If the Darkseer's initiation does strike true, Gyrocopter and Magnus will have a great opportunity to wreak havoc in the middle of those fights. And yeah, like I said before, it's all about Silencer and making sure that his timing is pretty much pristine in moving into the team fights and making sure that they can shut down that initiation there.
Yeah, one great ban coming up from Virtus.Pro is that Furion. Furion's not been getting picked a lot recently, but in conjunction with the Chaos Knight and Wisp, that's a huge amount of global presence, and you just can't let that slip away. Also, Furion transitions very well into late game because he's able to get a surprising amount of farm, even if he's played in that jungle role, just due to the fact that with a Midas and since he can go and clear creeps very quickly with his ultimate and just being able to TP around the map. Oh, great lane to pick up 1 second. But he gets a lot of items, and when you're going with a Silencer, with a Chaos Knight, and a Furion, that's just a ton of pressure, and I don't think Gyrocopter would be able to keep up. On the other end, Absolute Legends picks up that Lina, and that's great because it denies the Lina to Virtus.Pro. I'm sure they would want that kind of AoE stun to synchronize with their Magnus, and it's a ton of extra burst, which goes very well with Gyrocopter in lane. Virtus.Pro, on the other hand, continuing to go for that huge amount of teamfight, picking up the Clockwork, and Clockwork is a surprisingly good long lane hero versus the Chaos Knight, because just if you get 2 mana burns off due to cogs, Chaos Knight can't do his full combo. I'm not sure where they will be laning him because they have 3 heroes that can very comfortably go into the long lane, but we might see a dedicated jungling Darkseer on this lineup just due to the fact that, you know, Clockwork is so good in that long lane, and he will benefit quite a bit from that solo experience.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking there. And the other options aren't really that great for jungle. Technically, Magnus can with Empower, but it's not generally where you want to see him. So along those lines, I think Darkseer is going to be forced into the jungle as their current situation. Like you said, they have pretty solid team fight, but as far as their lane presence, it's actually very, very weak. They have 3 melee heroes, and Gyrocopter isn't that great of range himself, so they're really limited in that extent. And to make sure that they can control the lanes, they're kind of throwing away the lanes right now and just want to make sure that their team fight to follow up is going to be effective there. So they know that Clockwork isn't going to have the best of time on bottom lane. They assume that Darkseer isn't going to get as much experience as he would in the jungle as in the lane. But from that point on, if they can just get some reliable, stable gains on both counts, then I think they'll be able to move into a very solid fight. And they just have to break out of that laning phase and start going on into 3, 4, 5-man Dota.
Nice. This is actually really interesting coming out from Absolute Legends. They're picking up the Lifestealer. Now, Lifestealer is a little bit weak against the Magnus due to the fact that Reverse Polarity goes through that natural rage, that natural BKB coming from Lifestealer, but he's just a ton of extra damage on their lineup. They basically have, 3 heroes that scale very well into the late game, and Venomancer, wow, they are going deep for the AoE, and that provides a solid lane support. It's going to be difficult to go on Gyro in case Absolute Legends wants to go for something like an aggressive tri-lane. This is a really strong lineup from Virtus.Pro. If there was a team that they can take it into the late game with the Gyrocopter, and their mid-game team fight is also very, very strong. Absolute Legends is going to have to get a lot done to make sure their 3 primary farmers are able to get through.
Very true, very true. So this is definitely the lane. This is the lane presence they were looking for here. Venomancer is so powerful with that slow initiation. Arguably one of the best level 1 supports. And from there, he can zone and harass very well with Poison Sting. And then maybe transition into a little bit of push here and there. But either way, I think Venomancer is a very solid option. Not so great against the Lifestealer, but it's still going to make sure that they can be set up for pretty good success with this Gyrocopter early on. Because Airman loves to get big items, loves to carry hard. And that's obviously going to be the support to set him up to accomplish that. From there, I think Absolute Legends is probably going to go for an aggressive tri-lane to try to shut down that Gyrocopter, knowing that Darkseer can't really participate in the lane very early on. And it does look like we're going to have a quick pause as well as a couple of changes here and there, but looks like we're all good. So,
yep. On another note, we do see Miracle on that Silencer, so we're probably going to see him farming. Unicorn, who's kind of known as he's a fantastic farmer, and on Absolute Legends we've seen him in that primary carry, but I doubt it's going to be the case. One interesting thing is, once you have picked up a Wisp, you can't very well aggressively tri-lane because just due to the fact that Wisp needs a lot of experience, and if you deny him the experience from the lane, from those pulls, he's going to be fairly underleveled, and you're not going to get access to that relocate as quickly as you want. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a Chaos Knight mid with that Wisp just supporting with pulls and picking up a bottle. Is there some noise coming from your end, or is that on me,
No, it's
Blaze?
on me. Sorry, just real quick.
Oh,
That should
totally
be
fine.
done. And now as far as, do they have a reason for the pause real quick, or they're just sorting things out on their end here? One thing is Virtus.Pro did just finish up with a Star Ladder game of their own, actually running Airman on the Gyrocopter as well. So they have to kind of get themselves in the right mindset, obviously facing a completely different team than 3D Max here. And so they have a different lineup and a different they have to have a different mindset going on into it. Beyond that, the laning situation, they know that they're not going to be in the best circumstances. They really want to just make sure that they can get their ultis out, whether Clockwork can initiate with some really cool hook shots, or the Magnus coming in with a multiple person reverse polarity. That's their intention there. But beyond that, we do see Mania picking up the Wisp and Unicorn on the CK. So generally speaking, he's going to be trying to go and coinciding with that, try to get a lot of kills there. I presume they're going to go alongside Rise to try to get a lot of damage in there. But where do you think Miggle will go from there? Picking up the Stout Shield, the Quelling Blade.
He might just be jungling. With that item setup, you could just very effectively be jungling. I wouldn't be too surprised to see that, personally. I don't think that's what you want if you're going in for the lane.
For sure. So that's
Yeah.
interesting there. I mean, it's not really going to work 100% for their intentions if they wanted to go aggressive. I mean, they might just go for a 3.510 where they kind of put the life steal in the jungle and just have Unicorn safe lane farm. It won't shut down the Gyrocopter, but they have so much single target burst that they can file in one by one and not really, as long as they avoid the reverse polarity action, they will be in an okay position, just dishing out tons of damage. And even in the short period of the 4, 5, 6 second silencer ultimate, that is an extended period of time where they can just dish out raw auto attack damage and really cause Virtus.Pro a lot of trouble in the team fight. But we do see this swooping on in. The Iron Shell already up on NS. They can find him out, but they don't really have any way of disabling him or locking him down. Instead, they're just going to fall back from this position here, and they're just kind of drawing the line in the sand, saying we're going to be able to ward up your pull if we want to play aggressively, and kind of negate a lot of different things here. But we see these trees knocked down. This will set it up so even if an observer ward is placed to negate the easy camp, then they're going to be able to sentry it immediately because they have sentry wards on them and the trees themselves have been completely destroyed. So we'll make sure that they can guarantee these lanes, and I'm curious to see how it'll play out.
Yeah, one interesting thing to note is that NS ended up buying the courier and he did not get full supplies, so if he's going for that long lane, I think he'll probably still be fine because Power Cogs is really, really strong right now. But that's not something you'd often see from a team. Generally speaking, they want to go and give their long lane as much support as possible. Just an interesting thing to note from Virtus.Pro's lineup right here.
Yeah, so it looks like for the time being that Virtus.Pro is actually going to be the ones that are the aggressors in this circumstance here, and us popping off some cogs, maybe a misclick, I don't know, but right off the bat is going to be down on the bottom lane trying to help out Airman.
On that Venomancer?
Yeah, he can harass quite a bit with that, but there's still a lot of retaliation when you combine the auto attack damage from Rise and Mania together. It's just something that you don't want to contest with, even with that vast amount of mobility to work with.
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting laning setup coming from Virtus.Pro. They've gone in, they're playing, NS, generally a very talented support player. He actually seems to just playing support on that Clockwork, which isn't common, but with the fact that Power Cog starts at, 5 seconds, his nuke isn't the most important part of his toolkit anymore. And once he gets access to that hookshot, he's generally going to be as strong as you need. This is a very interesting strategy just to go and keep the Chaos Knight as down as possible.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Mania being really cute with that tether. This is, however, going to give Miggle a surprising amount of farm on the long lane. We've seen this done before, and he is getting dove.
Yeah, he's taking a lot of damage right here. Even rank 1 Iron Shell just eating away his health. And although he can feast up quite effectively against Santa with a pretty high base strength, 625 total, actually bottom, too much damage coming on through. And it is actually the first blood that we unfortunately do miss on Rise, with NS picking that up there. Just nice movement, and surprisingly, he doesn't even have to commit like cogs or anything. There was no skill usage from him. It was just sufficient Gale action from the Venomancer to allow them to do the right clicks they needed. So really good movement from them. They do pull out a very vast creep wave up in the direction they didn't really prefer, but in the end, they get the first blood and can't complain about that on mid lane. It's actually the Silencer finishing him off with a little bit of damage over time, popping off Last Word, following it up with the Curse of the Silent. Miracle going to pick up a kill for himself, and he did already skill Glaives.
Top lane, Miggle might be
wow, my gosh, all across the map here. He almost got the courier, but the Surge has expired. Instead, Rise with that TP is going to be able to turn around, so although he did fall in the bottom lane, it gave him the opportunity to counter-initiate on the top, and that worked out for Miggle quite effectively, as he'll have a bit more control over this lane from this point on.
Yeah, I mean, Miggle was having a really rough time. The Darkseer immediately going and creep skipping, and there's not much a poor little lifestealer can do against that. No real AoE clearing abilities until 6, and Feast isn't exactly spammable even then. But this bot trial lane is working out really well for them. Even with that pull, they weren't able to go and last it as well as they'd like to. Airman sitting at, wow, he's at 9 and 6. I take it back. Airman is very, very good at Dota. But
Yeah.
and they were able to go and grab all of that experience. So they're all sitting very happily. Even Venomancer's almost level 2, and I think here we're seeing that Venomancer's kind of a forgotten support, and us going a little bit on the wisp here. But I doubt anything's going to come of it.
No, they need that Gale to set it up, but for right now, just trying to control. Oh, 1 second stun coming on through. They will get the tether on top inside the cogs, and although he is able to eat his way through, the Reality Rift pulling him back in, but so much damage from those cogs, and NS is actually going to be able to bring down Unicorn with the Gale and the Barrage on Rise. He is also going to take a fall, looking for Mania. He cannot tether to any creeps, and just the right clicks from both the Venomancer and the Gyrocopter are easily going to do it. So very, very powerful skirmish for them in that 3v3 circumstance. Virtus.Pro easily coming out on top, and Airman getting the farm he wants, whether it's through creeps or through heroes. He is doing extremely well right now.
Yeah, and the other really difficult thing is every time they go on these engagements, they're able to go and grab the creeps back to them, so that's a ton of experience they're able to deny the tri-lane from Absolute Legends, and they're not able to get their pulls off. There's just been a lot of counter wardings, counter warding, and it's going to be really rough for these supports, because Lina, while that stun doesn't scale in duration, the reason you picked Lina is because she also provides a ton of nuke damage, and if you don't get the levels on her, she's surprisingly ineffective. However, they are winning mid, and that is something that's going to be super relevant, because if the Silencer, starts to become very, it's going to be the most important hero to watch for those mid-game teamfights, and that's kind of what they're relying on. Oh my god, how did he die top?
Yeah, it's the thing is, Miggle up against this Darkseer, you're saying that he was having okay farming, but I believe that was just for the first two levels. Once Darkseer hits level 3 Iron Shell, and now is... Well, I had rank 2 Iron Shell, now rank 3. He just has huge amounts of dominance. That
Mania's getting gone on by the 4NS.
He still has a tether available, so he will be able to survive if he gets this good tether off. The Gale will come on through from KSI under Rise, and that is going to be an easy kill on the Lina. Despite a nice double stun, it's just too far to run, too slow. The stun comes out, but the Barrage has done the damage, pulling back in that haste rune, doing work, making sure NS is out of tower range, and Unicorn could just watch as his support falls by the wayside. Back up on top, there is a deny from the Lifestealer. Nice play by Miggle, making sure that at least the Darkseer doesn't take solace in that. But yeah, really the only lane they have to work with right here is Miracle on the mid lane. He's been doing pretty well, despite actually hitting the last word on a creep, which is pretty hilarious. Either way, he's generally speaking been controlling pretty effectively, reducing the HP and mana of his opponent. And now that the tier 1 tower is down, Miggle's actually going to have a much easier time farming on this lane. Darkseer is not going to be willing to be as extended down towards that tier 2 for fear of a gank coming in from one of Absolute Legends' supports. So it will give Miggle a little bit more breathing room where he will be able to bounce back.
Yeah, one other unfortunate thing for Absolute Legends lineup right now is that Chaos Knight, while a very strong ganking hero, he has a pretty large recovery period just because his mana pool is so short. So he's been going very aggressively on the early game, but now it's Mania's just keeping on pooling him clarities, so he still has that available, but it's just not very good, and even that gets cancelled by a timely rocket from NS. They're not going to be able to be aggressive at all on this bot lane, and it seems like they've seeded it.
Yeah, they realize it's not going to be much of an option. They've wanted to get this pull off over and over. They've committed so many observers and sentries, mostly sentries, to make sure that they can use it, but only now is it going to be opening up here at the 6-minute mark, and that feels just too little too late. If the supports can't get any experience, if you can't get that burst damage on the Lina, or get some real levels to move in towards relocate on the Wisp, you are just putting yourself in a recipe for disaster. And one thing I want to highlight on is actually we do see some damage on TMW, but not that big a deal. No, the aspect of putting NS on this Clockwork as a number 4 and using him in this trial lane by just separating the battlefield with these cogs. I think the reason this is working is because Chaos Knight always has to get on the front line of things. He reality rifts in, pulling them out or pushing himself forward, and uses a stun, and when he pops off those cooldowns, he has to go in for some big right clicks, and NS has been on the ball with these cogs, pushing them back and really separating the fight so that they cannot pursue on the target they want to, and once that singled out target is able to escape, Airman just gets to clean up easily.
Yeah, one thing, for a really tangible representation of how badly this bot lane is going for Absolute Legends, look at the supports on Virtus.Pro. Both NS and the...
Gale comes on through, hits on Unicorn. There is a lot of damage done. Nice Silencer ultimate coming on through, but 1 second stun on Airman's not going to be enough. Pops off the Barrage, lots of creeps tanking that up, but it still will be the result in the death of Unicorn. Mania trying to deliver some auto attacks, but the Surge keeping Airman alive for the time being back on the southern end. Yeah, Mania is going to easily get dropped down here. I mean, that is 4 heroes committed with Santa having TP'd in, and now they're easily going to take this tower as well. So just relentless pressure coming from VP. Nice transition in from Santa, knowing he couldn't do too much more on the top lane. He shut down Lifestealer already, so he's like, okay, we'll make sure that the rest of the team is locked down. And now we see that obvious advantage coming out. Despite the tower deny up top, they are leading with almost 5k gold advantage right now.
Yeah, I mean both NS and the Venomancer have finished their boots. They're both sitting on Tranquils. KSI even with extra gold in the bank, and they can go for those kind of all those supportish items that you really want. Magic Wand, Tranquils, and that's going to be such an advantage when you're going and dealing against people that have no boots. And so Lina sitting at 295 move speed, what's she going to do when Clockwork runs at her with 365? It's going to be almost impossible for her to deal with that.
In the meantime, we do see mech buildup coming out for the Dark. So he actually has the full mech. That is ridiculous
Jesus.
timing. 8-minute mechanism? That's an extra 250 HP, not mentioning the bonus armor, to all your allies in a team fight. And I was talking about how Virtus.Pro's lineup relies on them going for 4-man and 5-man Dota, and mechanism is a perfect item to facilitate that. Getting an AoE heal, setting it up so they can just go push down towers, have some gradual heal over time. And early game, before he starts ranking up the Wall of Replica, Darkseer easily has the mana to facilitate that item. So really, they're going to be putting so much pressure out right here, and I don't know if AL has the, I mean, with a level 4 Chaos, I mean, look at the levels in general. So their entire Tri-Land bottom is either level 3 or 4. All they have is a level 8 Lifestealer and Silencer, and again, they're up against an 8-minute mechanism. It just seems like that item is going to enable Virtus.Pro to push so aggressively to team fight and pretty much never lose a single hero as long as they play it nicely. And we do see NS swooping on in, trying to bring down Rise right here. He does only have a rank 1 battery assault, but it should be enough to deal a lot of damage with the Ion Shell, and Rise taking so much right here. They just vacuum back on in, and that is one dead. Lina doesn't even get her second spell off there. So nice transition in from Absolute Legends, but I'm not sure if they're going to be able to go on through. Wall of Replica popped off. They do try to go on through. 2 seconds stun on Santa, but it's going to be TMW. Forcing Unicorn. He has that Reality Rip, or pops, sorry, wow, Reverse Polarity. Pops that off right there, and from there they are able to get the kill. Attempt on the block, but Face Boots on Miggle allows him to keep on moving, and from there he is able to escape. It would have been a really beautiful rank 2 Plague Ward block to come on through, but Faye's already up, keeping that kill or life on the board at least.
Yeah, and with those level 2 Plague Wards, just Shockwave spam to clear the wave, this middle tower is probably going to go down. One thing to note is Miracle actually went for that Midas. He really wanted this game to go long and kind of cement his advantage from the mid game. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be enough. That doesn't provide him any kind of stats. He's not going for a mechanism or something to help his team out. And he really can't contribute to team fights right now besides just pure damage and his ultimate. And with that ultimate down, Silencer is a very, very sad hero.
Yeah, and now we're going to see, there might be a little, no, pop off the barrage to make sure he's not at least disarmed, and Clockwork going to pick up the last on the tower. So the goal graph continues to just plummet in favor of Virtus.Pro here. We're seeing them move towards 7,500. All the tier 1 towers cleared out. They have control of the enemy's jungle now. I mean, if you look at the vision of the Radiant, they have one ward that is beyond half expiration down in the southeast, where it's pretty much irrelevant now that the laning phase is broken down. And from there, we see Airman swooping on in out of their sight, and now Chaos Knight is completely screwed over here. Yeah, that 4-second stun can help out against Santa, but there's 2 others at his back, and they're going to be able to not only pick off that kill, but move in for the kill on the tier 2 tower. And really, this is just too much pressure. And like you said, that was a lot of money committed to the Midas on the Silencer. It's an investment that they're not really going to see the return of in this short duration of a game. The pressure is just too much right now, and he'd be much better off with something like a Force Staff.
Poor Mania.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Mania just tried to escape out of the trees, but the tether not being enough for him with so many heroes raring to go. And actually I'm mid.
Yes.
Sorry, did not catch that kill fully, but Silencer does get picked off there. Nice hook shot and initiation between him and Magnus. So they're going to be able to get that pick off there. And the only compensation is they're putting pressure on the tier 1, but they're still losing a tier 2 in exchange, and that's not a trade that they're going to be looking for.
Yeah, one thing to note, just a slight correction. It seems like NS decided not to finish his Tranquil Boots and went instead directly for Arcanes. He had the money saved up, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes right for a pipe now. He sees Miguel, but oh, wait, he cancels the TP. Is there anyone able to follow up? Yes, that's a Magnus coming from the bot lane. I think they might actually be able to get him with a good skewer and more initiation. TP's coming in from the mid lane as well.
Yep, so they picked up Rise. Yeah, Darkseer was able to just pursue on through, and Miggle is very, very much so in the wrong woods. Going on through towards the enemy base, trying to juke as best he can, finding the wrong opportunity, and now with this rocket, they can keep full vision on him and just keep on pursuing on through. The best Miggle can hope for is to deny himself the neutrals, and no, it's going to be Airman to pick up the kill and go for a mega kill streak, sitting at 5-0-6. The gold graph continues to plummet, the experience graph telling the same story. So it's just pretty much giving them full item, full level control, and they can just push from here. Even take a Roche fight with their current team fight potential in an AoE sense, there is no way that could be contested. So AL is in really dire straits right now.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to note, like, this is how good Airman is. It's 12 minutes in, and he's still managing almost 5 creeps a minute by being so active on the map. This is just the hallmark of a good carry player. No matter how active the game is, you always have to make sure to get your farm, and Airman just putting on a clinic. Also, it looks like he's going straight for that BKB. This basically means they are looking to close this game out early. They can take it into the late game, but why bother when you have such a huge advantage right now?
Absolutely. And that's pretty much going to work very much in their favor. The only thing that they have to worry about now at this stage is a silencer ultimate when they're pushing uphill. If there is a well-timed global silence to come on out when they try to initiate up underneath the tier 3, that's pretty much the only real threat that they have to worry about themselves. Because there is still some decent disable on Absolute Legends, but they just don't have the damage to follow it up. They certainly can't burst down Santa before that mechanism comes out, and from there, the teamfight generally breaks down and Virtus.Pro comes out on top. So we already see them having a huge advantage. Hastrun active on the Magnus, who has Surge already, so he can pretty much be anywhere he needs to be at a moment's notice, even without a blink, which on the courier we do see it coming on through. So yeah, he has all the mobility he needs, all the initiation he could want, and actually we see the initiation coming out from NS, getting the cogs going on through after that hookshot. Miggle doing a lot of damage, but I think he'll be able to get on out, and instead it's just going to be the death of Miggle. Popping off the wall replica was a little questionable, but either way, getting the kill on the lifestealer, keeping NS alive, and walking away from there.
Yeah, these are all good things, and right now it looks like they're going to be looking to pressure down this tower. It seems like they're kind of itching for a fight here, and really...
Oh my gosh.
This
Wisp has such low HP right now. For a strength hero, he's sitting at 24 at SDR, so comparing that to the Shockwave burst, I mean, it's just too much. So they pop off the Global Silence to try to save people because the Shockwave comes on through, and he's not even committing the polarity to him. He just picks off a little Wisp. He respawns only a few seconds later because he's literally level 4, and from there, it's just fodder for them at this stage in the game. I would honestly not be surprised to see a good game call out in just a moment, because that kind of burst damage, whether it's like talking about the Ion Shell or the Shockwave, that amount of magical damage that scales so well early on, comparing to level 5 supports, it's just going to be able to two-shot them or just bring them down to critical HP at a moment's notice. So their teamfight is really broken down right now, and I don't really know if Absolute Legend has what it takes to come back, especially now that Global Silence has been utilized.
Yeah, I mean, if Absolute Legends comes back from this game, this will be probably the biggest comeback I have been able to see in Dota 2. But, and also, one thing to note is, like, how powerful these Venomancer wards are. You know, just doing a lot of consistent damage to towers, kind of giving them a little bit more pushing ability that, you know, honestly, you'd see, it's kind of, once you get about 4 Venomancer wards up, it's like having a Chen, practically. They just do so much damage to these towers. And when Venomancer, oh, wow, what a quick gem pickup. They are really playing aggressively. With that pickup, they're going to completely deny any semblance of map control that Absolute Legends still has. And I'm not sure what they can do. Look how aggressive Airman's positioning is here. He knows he has the Aegis. He's kind of begging them to go on him because he knows that that Magnus is sitting right behind with that Blink Dagger and Reverse Polarity raring to go.
Absolutely. So that's pretty much where it's looking at with that Aegis. He's fearless. BKB would come out pretty much any time he farms up just a little bit more. Like you said, he still is on top of the CS despite dominating in kills across the board. So doing pretty well there. And yeah, Lina can't even follow up with the Luna Blade to add in some burst damage there. That's how bad of a spot they're in right here. And even if the Wisp were to hit 6, and okay, we do actually see Reality Rift off the cliff. He skewers on down though, despite the stun coming on through. So nice little reflexes from TMW, keeping himself out of a bad spot. I don't know if that would have been the end-all be-all one way or another, but he definitely knows that he doesn't want to be pulled out of position like that anytime soon. But even like I was saying, even if the Wisp did hit 6, it's not going to be a game changer like it would be in normal games. It's going to be pretty much they have no map control in the first place, so even though they have global presence, they're not going to be feeling safe to use it. Actually, yeah, there's a lot of damage coming out of Airman. He's going to be bursted down pretty hard, but still surviving. Will eat the silence in the face, and actually Unicorn getting skewered back in. He's going to get dropped down immediately, and that is just too much damage coming on through. Global silence does happen, but Airman still will survive to bring down the tower. Now with the wall replica active, they're looking to push down onto the racks to finish this, put the nail in the coffin here. We do technically see buybacks available for the silencer, but that's about it. And honestly, popping off a 16-minute buyback seems a little bit ridiculous when you're trying to hold your base, but that's just how quick this game has gone with this early mechanism, with the amazing push they put out. And now, yeah, they're finishing this off no problem at all, and still Gyrocopter remains on 20 HP. Initiation coming in from NS doesn't work out for him. He actually, I think, hit a creep, but either way, going on through now, looking at Miracle, doing a lot of damage there, popping out the Reverse Polarity, and Unicorn as well, bursting him down really quickly before anything can come out. And now they can take the entire base. They can just heal up just a little bit. Next mech cooldown, they can push in for mid.
Yeah, I don't know what Absolute Legends can do from this perspective, this position. You know, the armlet isn't even finished on lifesteal. He's just been trying to get his creeps as quickly as possible on the mid lane, so he has some item so he can contest. But Gyrocopter, has he finished that? Oh yeah, he's finished BKB, and with that, I think that's the final nail in the coffin. Also to note, with that Venomancer ulti is doing so much damage right now. The fact is, it's already a huge chunk of damage, and all these supports who are sitting at 600 HP on the Lina, and I think, yes, the Wisp is even lower, just a lower 600. They can't survive it. If they go and get hit by any of this kind of incidental damage... Oh, Miggle, they're going on...
Yeah, actually, nice little exchange trying to bring down an S, but surging out of the open wound's not going to help him out too much. Santa being pulled back in, but he's so darn tanky, so they switch over to KSI. Want this Geometry side to come out. They will be able to burst him down with the Infest, but now TMW going to finish off Mania, taking some big right clicks from Miracle. Miggle will turn around, looking at an S, but he is all by himself, no mana available, and he's just going to get locked down right here. Beautiful skewer, pulling him back on into the call down, and that is just too much. Triple kill for the Magnus in the end. TMW cleaning it up, and now they can just push in 100%. No real contest at all.
That was one of the sickest mag plays I've seen in a long time. Great, he goes and positions himself. One thing with TMW's Magnus play is he's always in the right position to catch multiple heroes with skewer, and he treasures his blink cooldown, so he's always able to make those big dot plays whenever his team needs it. Really great play, and kind of like the flash you expect from a dedicated solo mid player.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And, I mean, NS is going for an Ags, which is kind of a lulzy item in the sense that it doesn't offer that much utility initially compared to different items like drums and auras to help out your carry, but it's still a very effective item for getting those pickoffs over and over and over, and since they're in such an aggressive lineup, it is probably his best option. And now we do see Miko going on in. Actually, BK being out of the Reality Rift to turn things around and bring down Unicorn immediately, now doing a lot of damage. Miracle is going to fall as well, and S is dropping low, but I think he will survive, just barely. But they're going to go in, and that's a good game well played coming out from Mania. Hopefully they can get things back together for Game 2, because this Game 1 in this best-of-3 series went completely one-sided. There was no doubt in my mind who had the upper hand throughout every single stage of the game, and even though Virtus.Pro's lanes were weak in the sense they didn't have very intellect supports that have powerful stuns, they were able to turn around with really good movement, and I gotta say, NS's Cogs made most of those early 3v3 skirmishes down on bottom, so I gotta give him my MVP, but all of them played extremely well, especially with that Magnus in that last major team fight.
Yeah, one thing to note is that I feel like it was almost, I feel, looking at the picks, right? If what we thought were the picks, there's going to be a long lane Clockwork, there's going to be a jungle Darkseid. That's a very traditional way of laning it. But Virtus.Pro had a super aggressive lineup. They had the Venomancer guild, Cogs, and the Rocket Barrage at level 1 on their aggressive tri lane, and that's a ton of damage. I don't think Absolute Legends was ready for it. They expected to be a lot safer and, just catch some farm on their Nake's top, but they were not able to get it. Imagine if on top lane, is Virtus.Pro is NS gonna die to creeps here? Oh nope, sick hook shot out, and I think he's gonna live. Yeah, that's some team play. Galing creeps so your Clockwork lives. But yeah, imagine that if the top lane was just a Gyrocopter and a Venomancer, I think Nyx would be able to get decent farm experience there, but they just mind gamed Absolute Legends here, and I really have to give them kudos. Innovative drafting and just excellent team play.
Yeah, I personally haven't seen a Clockwork in a tri-lane, at least since Dota 1, and I definitely don't think that's what Absolute Legend was expecting when they saw that Clock pickup. Like we said, we called out a bunch of different ways to lane it. They thought maybe, we thought maybe something more defensive, like a Venomancer Gyro top with Darkseer and jungle, but in the end it came down to a very, very painful lineup, and every single time a Gale came down, there was a kill, and Clockwork made sure they couldn't really retaliate with beautiful cogs. So the conclusion comes down to a 30 kill to 6 advantage in favor of Virtus.Pro, taking Game 1 and moving on into Game 2 with a nice 1-point advantage, trying to take down this best-of-3 series. They want to shut it out, but we'll see if Absolute Legends can bounce back and send out one of their own little clever pocket strats of their own to try to get back in the game here.
Yeah, GG's guys, that was one of the funnest games I've had to cast this entire tournament.